What if the biggest threats to our faith aren't these huge, dramatic moments of failure? What if it's the small, quiet compromises we let slide every single day? In this explainer, we're going to dig into a really powerful lesson from the ancient story of Nehemiah, a story about what it really takes to build a life of faith that actually lasts.
So let's start with something that might hit a little too close to home if you've ever tackled a renovation project. Imagine you're tearing down a wall in your house and you find that the original builder, well, they cut a lot of corners. They used cheap materials, did a shoddy job, and put the whole building at risk.
And now you've got a choice, right? You can either patch it up, cross your fingers, and just hope for the best. Or you can do the hard, expensive work of rebuilding the foundation the right way. Well, that whole mess is a perfect picture of a deep spiritual truth. A life of faith needs a solid, uncompromised foundation if it's going to stand the test of time. So, where do you even start with a rebuild like that? Well, according to the story of Nehemiah, it all begins with the first essential piece of the puzzle, a willing heart. It starts with a personal choice to just say yes and commit to God's plan. Just try to put yourself in their shoes for a second. The people of Israel had a huge decision to make. They could stay right where they were, in their comfortable, secure towns, or they could volunteer to uproot their lives and move into the newly rebuilt Jerusalem, a city that was still pretty uncertain and maybe even a little dangerous. That choice to step into the unknown, that was a massive act of faith. And that's really the core of it all. Willing devotion isn't about feeling 100% ready or having all the answers. Nope. It's about making a conscious choice to trust God, even when it means leaving your comfort zone behind. It's that choice that opens us up to His bigger plans and pushes our faith to a whole new level of dependence on Him. Which, of course, brings up a really practical question for you and me. When you think about what God might be asking you to do, what are those fears? What are the doubts or objections that just keep popping up? Because ultimately, we all face that same choice. But here's the beautiful part. That willing choice, that scary step of faith, it doesn't lead to a life of drudgery. In fact, it leads directly to our second key component, an absolutely incredible, powerful, and joyful celebration of worship. After all that backbreaking work and all those hard decisions, the people didn't just quietly settle in. No way! They erupted in praise. The Bible says their joy was so immense, so loud, that the sound of their worship could be heard from miles and miles away. That was the payoff for their obedience.
But this worship was way more than just an emotional moment. It actually had a structure to it. First, there was purification. They intentionally got right with God. Then came the passion. They offered sacrifices with genuine, heartfelt joy. And finally, there was provision. They gave generously out of their own pockets to support the priests and the ongoing work in the temple.
And this shows us a brilliant principle. True God-honoring sacrifice isn't something we do to try and earn brownie points with God. It's something that flows naturally from a heart that is already focused on worshiping Him. The worship has to come first, and then the giving just follows.
So if it really all starts in the heart, what might you be holding on to a little too tightly? What are you maybe struggling to give up to God?
Now, it would be awesome if the story just ended right there, on that incredible high note of joyful worship. But it doesn't. And this is where we get to the core challenge, the constant threat that's always lurking and trying to crack our foundation, the slow, quiet, creeping danger of compromise. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you find this adorable little lion cub. It's cute, seems totally harmless, and you think, hey, I'm going to take this little guy home as a pet. It feels like such a small, manageable decision. So you feed it every day, you play with it, and because you see it all the time, you don't really notice that it's getting bigger and stronger. And that's exactly how sin works in our lives, isn't it? It just creeps in so gradually you almost don't even see it happening. Then one day, you wake up and realize you haven't brought home a cute little pet. You've been feeding a beast that now has the power to threaten your very life. What started as just one small, tolerated compromise has grown into a life-threatening danger. And believe it or not, this is exactly what happened in Jerusalem right after that epic celebration. That lion cub of compromise started to grow. First, it infected the leadership. A priest literally gave God's enemy a spare room right inside the temple. Then it spread to business, with people ignoring the Sabbath to make a quick buck. And finally, it crept into relationships, watering down the faith of the entire next generation. So what do we do about this? How do we fight back? Well, the answer is the final, and maybe the most crucial application from this whole story. We have to live a watchful life. We have to be a constant guard.
We're warned in the Bible to be alert because our enemy is prowling around like a roaring lion. See? That cute little cub doesn't stay a cub forever. The threat is real, and it demands our full attention.
So what does watchful devotion even look like? Well, it's not about just sitting back and hoping for the best. It's an active, ongoing effort to please God above everyone and everything else. And that means we have to take a totally uncompromising attitude toward those little sins before they grow into something that can devour us. And this brings us right back to where we started with that rundown house. Remember? It wasn't one giant mistake that brought the building down. It was a whole series of small, dishonest choices. And it's the exact same with our faith. It's the small, unchecked compromises that will ultimately destroy a strong foundation. So we're going to end with this final challenging thought. The people in Nehemiah's story had to rebuild and then guard the actual physical walls of their city. The question for us today is a little more personal. In your own life right now, where do you need to guard your walls?